What's going on, everyone? Gilman with Wellthy Stocks back with another Moderna update video. I've made a bunch of videos during the week taking a look at the daily price action, where we also take a look at key pieces of news that came out that day. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take us kind of back through the week and take a look again at each of the news that came out, in case some of you guys missed the video, or just to kind of recap and kind of see everything that came out this week, since it was a pretty big week for Moderna in terms of news. And then we'll take a look at the stock price. It was also a good week for Moderna in terms of stock price, so we'll take a look at that. So first we'll take a look at the news. Second, we'll take a look at kind of the stock action, support and resistance levels, and based on that, what we think Moderna stock could do. So if you are invested in Moderna, I try to make pretty regular updates on Moderna. I followed the stock for a little bit now, so go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to my channel to stay up to date with all of those. And hope you guys are all having an amazing weekend, or long weekend if you are off on Monday for Martin Luther King Day. So let me hit record. We will get right into it. I know I didn't make a video on Friday because there wasn't too much price action. It was a slightly red day, but when we compare that to kind of the overall indexes, it wasn't too bad of a day for Moderna, and technically speaking, Moderna outperformed the market on Friday. Let's take a look at some news that I was talking about. We'll start with some three big, I think, kind of good news, and one that I think could be not necessarily negative news, right? But it could impact the stock price in a not positive way. So let's take a look at this first one, and I've already covered this, but it's essentially taking a look at their booster shot. So what Moderna is doing right now is Moderna CEO came out and said, hey, COVID is something that could be around with us for a while, forever maybe. And so what Moderna is doing is they're planning for a booster shot a year after initial vaccination, or the 2-dose vaccination annually, just to kind of boost that immunity, those antibodies that we get in the vaccines. To see what the effectiveness of that is. So they're starting trials on that. This, if it goes through, right, it's good for Moderna because obviously we're talking about yearly revenue coming from these booster shots, or if it's a vaccination every year, yearly shots coming from these yearly vaccinations as well. So that's something that, if it works out, obviously it's too early to tell, right? But the fact that they're doing this kind of gives us something not to look forward to in life, right? But to look forward to in Moderna stock, because it could mean, repetitive revenue over the course of the long term because of this booster shot. The second key piece of news is, look, the reason the stock started declining after the FDA approval is because it was a, buy the rumor, sell the news. So when the FDA approval actually came through, the stock was so overhyped that people that were kind of in since, $100, $120 could sell at 160, 70, right? And make out with 30, 40, 50% in a couple months, couple weeks even, depending on when you got in and out, I guess. But all that to say, the reason it was selling off is because of how high it was, right? So profit-taking pullback. And then the other question that people were asking, investors were asking, was, well, what happens after COVID, right? We're talking about Moderna, a company that had not even $100 million in revenue just a year ago, to a company that's expected to do $11 billion in revenue. Well, what happens this year after, we get the 11, 12, 13 billion, whatever it ends up being, depending on how many orders they get? Well, what happens the year after, right? What are we talking about in terms of revenue 2022, 2023? If we don't have the coronavirus around anymore, right? Because there's so much we don't know about the coronavirus, right? If it goes away and we don't have these billions and billions of dollars worth of, Moderna vaccines going for coronavirus purposes, what is Moderna going to do? Is it still going to be worth the same, or is it like a one-time revenue that we're getting? And so this week, this information was really cool because it kind of shows Moderna's future plans on how they plan on continuing to grow, continuing to, evolve to where their work is needed, where this mRNA vaccine technology can really be effective, right? And those are kind of three things. The first one being flu vaccine, right? We all get the flu. It comes around. Flu season happens yearly. We all get the flu, right? So this is related to, kind of using this similar mRNA technology for a normal flu vaccine. They talk about, Each year, there's 140 to 800,000 hospitalizations and 12,000 to 61,000 deaths related to the flu. 8% of the US population experiences symptoms from flu each year. So, you know, taking a look at that, they've started kind of this trial, or planning on starting this trial in 2021. Now, it is phase 1, so they've got a little bit of ways to go, right? But it kind of just shows what they're doing. The other one is an HIV vaccine. This is all on Moderna's website, guys. If you just, you know, pause the video here if you want to read this, type this in, I'm sure you could get to the same article. But the second one is the HIV vaccine, right? 38 million people living with HIV and, you know, 2 million new cases of HIV. Again, this is phase 1. And then the last one is Nipah virus, right? Which has a really high fatality rate. So if you get it, you know, you're not gonna end up too well, is what I understand. But anyway, they're working with, they're co-developing it with someone else, and that's also kind of in early stages. Now, I understand that a lot of these are early stages, and we're not saying that, you know, next year they're gonna have a flu vaccine that's gonna make them billions of dollars, but it kind of gives us an idea of what this company could be doing in the future. The last one that I want to touch on is the EU may secure 50 million more doses at a premium. So if you want to read this article, you know, Bloomberg Quint, type in this name. You can read more if you want more information. But we were talking about they want 50 million extra doses, and now, although the price isn't fully agreed to, you know, they're talking about a 33% more premium than the original. So they've already ordered 160 million. They want 50 million more. That 50 million more could come at a 33% premium price. So that's something to keep in mind. Remember that the US can also order a couple 100 million more. So if we see that, that's good news for the stock as well. But the reason I wanted to cover this is because 50 million more at a 33% premium could mean sweet change for Moderna. The last news is not necessarily Moderna, but it's kind of related to some of its competitors, right? Because that's what we have to understand. The more vaccines come out, the less Moderna is going to have kind of that powerful player, you know, that it has right now. Right now it's Pfizer and Moderna mostly, you know, with a lot of the orders, as well as AstraZeneca for some. But once, you know, Johnson & Johnson's starts to come out, you know, we're talking about a one-shot vaccine. If it's just as promising, then, you know, Moderna's 2-shot might not be as popular, right? So just something to keep in mind. The reason I'm tracking this a little bit is because, you know, once that happens, we could see a little bit of an effect on Moderna stock as well. Wow, that was a lot on news, but I just wanted to quickly cover everything before we get into the stock. But let's take a look at some stock price action. Actually, really quick, so we also got Swiss approval this week. That was one thing that I've covered. Didn't want to cover it again because, you know, I think that's relatively small compared to everything else that I shared. And then the other one is that Moderna to Uber partnership, which again, you know, isn't necessarily bringing money into Moderna as much as some of these other things, but it's just cool to see, right? This vaccination is so much more than just, you know, making money on the stock price, at least to me. And so it's cool to see, and two powerful players kind of powering up just to make sure that people get this vaccine effectively. Now let's take a look at the stock price, and what we will do is we will take a look at the 5-day action of Moderna stock. We will take a look at on the daily chart kind of the trend that we've seen, and then we'll identify future levels of support and resistance. So this week was a great week for Moderna. We saw a little bit of a sell-off, dropping all the way down to 111, but as you can see, right, we are nicely trending up. We went from kind of 111s to 117s, 117s to 124. We were pretty flat here on Wednesday, which was totally fine. We talked about that, right? We pushed up from 123 to 130, and then again, Friday was a little bit of a red day, down 7 cents on the day. But if we take a look at, you know, the NASDAQ, right, for the 5-day chart, you could see it was a negative week. We started here, we ended a little bit lower. You know, same thing with the Dow, ended a little bit lower, and then the S&P ended decently lower as well. So taking a look at all of those indexes and then seeing what Moderna was able to do just gives me, it makes me a little bit more happier that it was able to outperform the market during its weakness. So let's take a look now at the daily chart, and we'll kind of cover what we cover on a daily basis with the future levels of support and resistance, right? First things first, we talked about this downtrend that happened after the FDA approval and the sell-off that pursued, and we talked about when that could stop. We saw that happen at the 102 level, and then it started turning around, and on the third or fourth level, I had talked about, hey, it's really important for us, and I drew this bottom line for us here. It's really important that we kind of maintain this level as a support. If we were to visit down there, we should hopefully bounce, which we saw happen, a couple times throughout the course, right? Then here, we saw it here, we saw a bounce up, nice green day there. And then since then, right, for the past 5 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we've made higher highs and higher lows. So the stock is pushing up every day, making a higher high than the day before, and also a higher low, which means it's not dropping as much as it did the previous day. Both of those are really good news for the stock. The other thing that I want to really look at is, look, at this point here, we were talking about, being below all these exponential moving averages, which here are the ones I look at, 8, 21, 34, 55, and 89. And I talked about the first key level being the 55 EMA that we were able to take over, which we found resistance a couple times. When we took over that EMA here, right, what we saw was it acted as really nice support here, here, and here for 3 consecutive days in a row. 7, 8, and 11, and then we took over, some more EMAs, and then now we are above all the 5 EMAs that I look at on the daily chart. So that's really good news for the stock. And so from a support level perspective, right, what we have is we have the low point of the previous day, right, because we're making higher highs and we're making higher lows. So we've got the low point of the previous day to look at as a level of support. What does that mean? Well, if we take a look at this L here, that just means the low point, depending on what charting tool you use. I'm using Webull here in my video, but depending on what chart tool you use, you get the low point, right, on the daily chart. So here, our low point on Friday was 126.58. Our low point was 122.80 the day before, 120.74, 117.12, right, on the previous 4 days. So if we go down, those are kind of the 4 first levels that I'm looking at from a price action perspective. But what I'm also looking at, if you've seen my videos, is the EMAs, right? So we talked about the 8, 21, 34, 55, 89 EMAs. Realistically, right, what I'm hoping for is a bounce off the 8 EMA. The 8 EMA right now is at 123.17. So if we see a little bit of a pullback, I'm hoping for a bounce. If not at the low point of this Friday candle that I just identified, then on the 8 EMA point at 123, and then 122 at the 21 EMA, and then the 34 EMA is at $120.97. We've got the 55 all the way down here at 114.85 that we saw bounce, but in order for it to get there, it's going to have to break this line, which we're still monitoring, right, that upward moving line. So hopefully we found support at the 8 or the 21 EMA, and we don't push down further than that. The other thing is, right, if I get rid of this EMAs, right, I want this line to still hold for the stock to be kind of trending up. I've had this 145 line drawn here because that's my sort of goal for the stock to reach. I'm hoping for that to happen sometime in the first half. I was hoping for that to happen in the first half of 2021, but hey, if it keeps going, we could see that happen just in the next couple of days or week or so. But what I'm hoping, or what I'm expecting rather, not hoping, right? But what I'm expecting is, look, we went from being in the 102s, in the low 100s, to 129, which means someone who bought here is up 25% on their investment. So if they invested $1,000, they would have had $1,300 at this point. That could lead to a little bit of profit taking, right? And I know I said that on Thursday as well, but I'm just warning you guys that, don't be super excited about how far up it's going and just kind of put all your money in, because we are up so much in such a little amount of time that we could see a little bit of a pullback. Again, not saying that the stock's going to crash, but we could see a little bit of sideways action. Maybe we see it go down to this line. This line's all the way down at 121. Like I said, the 8 EMA is all the way down at 123. So if it could go down to that 123 level, or that 121 level, or it could just go sideways, right, between kind of this 128, 130, 132 level for a couple days, establish the next base, and then start to push up. Look, I'm still bullish on Moderna. I continue to hold my shares, but at the same time, I understand and I realize that we are up 25% in 2 weeks. So a little bit of profit taking is healthy, but I'm in it for kind of the longer term, right? At least until, Q2, end of Q2, beginning of Q3 2021, depending on how the company's doing. And then I'll kind of reassess my position. But until then, I'm planning on holding my shares. So a little bit of a pullback does not worry me, but I just want to let you guys know. Now, we've been getting really good news. So it's totally valid for this ride to continue, for us to make new highs, make higher highs, higher lows every single day because of the good news we're getting. But depending on, basing it on how far up we are, I would not be surprised for a couple sideways days, couple small red days, a little bit of consolidation, pull back to the AEMA at 123 before we push up. Just something to keep in mind, right? But I wanted to point that out to you guys. The other thing that I really like about the stock right now is that we are above both the 20-day moving average now and the 50-day moving average. And I'm hoping for that to, be the case as we continue to push forward. So again, watching for this line right here, which for, the next candle on Tuesday to be in the 121s, looking for that AEMA to hold if we see a pullback at 123. But other than that, I'll keep you guys posted on what I'm doing with my, or not what I'm doing with my shares, because I just said I'm planning on holding my shares, but what I see with the stock moving forward. So I know that was a lot of information that I just covered, but I wanted to kind of share everything that I had with you guys, so you're all equipped to make your own decision. Remember to always make your own decision. I shared the names of all the articles that I was looking at in case you want to look at something, check my facts. If you don't agree with my analysis, it's your money, feel free to do whatever you want with it, but don't just kind of invest because I see good in the company. So hope you guys all had an amazing weekend and have an amazing start to your week. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Let's remember to be a bit better every single day, and until next time.